So that was awesome. So that was a really rad commercial to be a part of, and it really didn't even feel like a commercial other than the process, which I'm going to go into a little bit. It's not often that you get to do commercial work that is also promoting something socially responsible, that leaves a positive message that isn't just trying to force a brand or a product on your throat. So this was a treat to work on. So we edited 3 films like this. So this is one of 3, each based on a real student's life and aspirations. This edit process is a bit different than the documentary process that I've discussed, mostly due to the fact that it's for a commercial client, right? So the quick run through of the commercial process, for those that might not know, and for those that are on here that do know, now's the time to maybe go grab a coffee because this is the boring part. Real quick, client has a need to promote a specific product or a service, and so their ad agency will come up with a concept, maybe write a script or just an outline, and then they'll seek out production help. A director is found, and that director with their production company then takes the agency's concept and either updates that script or completely writes their own, blah, 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 forms the creative together or single-handedly, however you want to look at it. Once all this gets approved collaboratively, they move into production of those scripts. So now during this time, post-production, us at Hiatus, we may be brought in to help with the concepting, or we might only be brought in right before that production. Once the production is completed, we'll take the footage and start cutting. Oftentimes, we are just going right into the edit room with the agency, but sometimes we're able to make a first cut with the director. The time could either be a few days, 1 day, a couple weeks, several months, a year. Commercial process is kind of all over the place, depending on the project. Just working on versions, updates, notes, changes, all that stuff. And again, post is a very collaborative process. And the editors oftentimes are the problem solvers when these issues come up. When there's a lot of different voices, and then how do you take all of these notes and put it all together in one cohesive summary of the notes. So it's also our job to either be the second director when the director can't be there, and oftentimes the entire tone of that post-production process is going to be set by the editor. Their tone in the room and just the way that they handle the project. So a strong editor is not only one who understands story, but is also one who understands the human condition. How to be a chameleon working with different personality types and really, really working with people, collaborating. Making things involves creatives being confident, so there can be a lot of strong energies in the rooms as well, right? So navigating everyone's unique perspectives and taking all that into consideration to make something that the entire team is happy with can be a heavy mental task. But again, it's super rewarding at the end. Sometimes I like to joke that editors are an uncredited therapist for everyone as well. Haha. So now the cool thing on this Best Buy project, so that's a typical commercial process. The cool thing on this one was this was actually written by Najee herself. So the words you heard were all written by Najee. Agency, nobody actually wrote that. So that's why this one's a little unique and, like I said, a really fantastic experience. So after editorial in not just commercial projects, but all projects, after the editorial phase, just going to touch on it real quick for those of you that may have questions. After we get through approvals in the editorial, we move into the finishing stage. This stage is, like I said, for all projects, but they vary differently based on the project scope, right? Finishing stage includes color, color balancing, giving the film a look, or just making it look cohesive all across the board, VFX stuff, painting signs out, adding things, whatever, and then audio mix. And then that's kind of the summary of getting a project to completion. So again, what makes commercial editing different than film editing or passion project editing is pretty obvious. There's usually a lot more people that have their hands on these commercial projects. Obviously, big major films have a ton of people as well. But in this specific case scenario that I'm comparing, which is, again, why I bring up the idea of collaboration. Collaboration is teamwork, right? It can easily be compared to the sport of basketball. If anybody's seen the Michael Jordan series that came out, we can talk about that. Basketball is a team sport. It's all about the 5 on the court and how they work together. Ball movement, a winning mindset that needs to be shared collectively. Teams can't win with just one great player, even if you're Michael Jordan. even if he's making a documentary to make himself sound cool. To win championships, the Bulls won. It took the entire team, not just Jordan. And filmmaking is exactly that. So I'm going to move on to the final project I'm going to discuss, which is a music video. This one just came out a couple months ago. It's for a local Detroit artist, Sam Austin's. The reason why I bring up this process and this project is we do a lot of music videos here. It's mostly because it's something we enjoy to do. It really allows us to kind of flex our creative muscles and try new things and really push ourselves. And the reason why I say that we do it with music videos is because a lot of times they can be showpieces for creatives too. And additionally, the band or the artist. Most of the time, at least the music videos I've worked on, if anybody out there has bigger budgets, but most of the time music videos don't have big budgets. So you're forced to work within limitations. But for me as a creative, I think limitations are great because it helps challenge the creatives to make something within that framework. And what's even more great about the music video process is the entire collaboration. Oftentimes music videos might have a smaller crew, and so you can really dig in and dive deep with your collaborators. And again, since you're working with limited tangible resources, you rely on your mind to try and push those limits as much as possible to come up with clever ways to do some really cool shit. So I'm going to show a little clip from this Sam Austin's video. Again, all the links will be posted so you can watch the full things. So yeah, let me show a little clip of this bad boy.
Y'all false income, where the ends come. I can't even get no deal, son. I need my ears up, so I'm next. Too much shit in the front, hanging out the window. Let your friends know I ain't never been a bitch, nigga. Giving info. We made it right, we made it right, we made it left. 2%. He slid down on Lafayette. Put the tape brush, but he missed the last. I put the whip on Congress. Let's go. Rip past that nigga in the parking lot.
Whew. It's a little different pace than the other ones. So yeah, that one was really fun. Like, as you can see and compared to the other projects that I've shown, sometimes you just need that kind of like creative explosion and just do whatever the hell you want. Especially in editorial, it's super fun. Props to Sam, again, the artist in this one. He had a lot of the concept worked out beforehand before approaching the director and I. The director, Keenan, took the concept and expanded on it and made it what it is and into that way and made it all happen within that tiny budget that we had allocated for it. So one interesting thing specifically on this project is obviously all the glitch effects and all that stuff. And again, you saw a little bit of that in the show reel of the work that I showed earlier, but all the distorted footage that's spliced in and on the TVs on set. Keenan had originally approached me and asked if I could edit the glitchy, distorted mess of the video before they went into production so they could actually put it into the TVs. So a lot of that glitch stuff was actually created before they shot. One cool note adding on this production was that we chose to shoot it on 35mm Kodak film instead of using digital. It allows just for a really cool look with the grain, the colors, the overall feeling, just everything. So what that meant in the process, obviously after production, we had to get the film scanned, processed and scanned. So that's even a fun part of the process too. Anyway, I was just gonna go through a couple of quick glitches and some of the effects and layers that I'd done. It's kind of hard to show in motion, so I just did frame grabs. And so what I wanted to show is just the layers that goes through. And again, this is just a simple still pulled from it, knowing that a lot of this work is actually more custom, like masking and mapping and things like that I play with as well. But as you can see, the original image on the left is just a guy falling, kind of looks a little crappy. And then I just kept playing with layers and color correction and balancing to really fine tune the desired look that I wanted to get to, which that's the final frame. I know a lot of times people are like, well, why did you want to make something look worse? But sorry, Mom. So the fun thing about this glitch stuff is a lot of times we'll use custom VHS stuff where we'll actually transfer it to a VHS tape, pump it through, play with some tracking, get it really fucked up, and then bring it back in so we can edit it digitally. So for this project specifically, I'm a big fan of authenticity and like why we're adding glitches. So I usually start with understanding the reason why and how that works within the concept, and then deciding what type of look makes the most sense, whether it be VHS, whether it be DV tapes, or a pixelated like cable TV distortion, or like film flashes. So this project actually, Sam had wanted to set up, takes you through a couple different styles where it is a VHS style or a film style, or even like when it was like a square 4:3 format, almost like old TV. So again, there's that final frame on that one. This was another frame that I thought was pretty silly and fun to show the build and the process on that one. And again, all of those glitches that you saw in that video had probably some process like this behind it. I really, really like to fine tune all that stuff. And I'm kind of a perfectionist at heart. So again, kind of went through, I usually start with color correction and go through and really dial in the colors and the looks that I want. And then I start bringing in layers, and like the VHS layers or the static layers might be things that I'd used on past projects that we might have actually acquired through VCRs, or might be some sourced material or a combination, or I take sourced material and make it even crazier in After Effects oftentimes as well too. So the final frame on this one, which I know is probably just ridiculous looking, but it started with that picture of that man at the diner. And then the last one I was going to show real quick was just this one of Sam with the Joker scene. So as you can see on frame 1 there, that's pre-color correction. So that's like the raw film that we got out of the camera. Frame 2 goes through obviously the color correction phase. And then after that, again, going through that process of just adding layers, playing with the colors, really playing with blend modes, and really fine tuning that glitch look and how it kind of slaps on and transitions through all that. Yeah, so then the final frame of that one turned into that. Pretty silly. So with that, I've been rambling for a long time. That's about it. You guys have any questions? I'd love to know if there's any questions about the process stuff or anything like that. So that's that.
Well, thanks a ton, Shane. Yeah, sure. If you have any questions, feel free to add them to the Q&A down there at the bottom. I'll be making sure things come in. If you have any questions on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, let me know. I'll get them into chat here as well. Jokey, do you want to start off?
Yeah, thank you. Also, thank you for doing this, Shane. We really appreciate you doing this. Your face looked familiar when you said the work. I was like, okay, now I know who this person is. I guess my first question would be like, has your approach changed, or how has your approach changed from the work to Hiatus?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And I'm gonna, so specifically to my approach to editorial, it absolutely has changed. I think as editors, film editors, you're really only ever getting better, because I think to be a great film editor, it's actually life experiences. It's learning people. It's like feeling the feels, you know, it's growing, it's maturing. And really, again, I feel like you truly only get better over time with editorial. So my approach, I would say, has probably become more refined, has become more with a specific process, organized. I think the work had that fun, youthful naivety in the creative process, which is, again, an amazing part that I still hold true today as well. But I think it's just a little bit more refined. And honestly, it's probably being a little bit more confident in some of the actions and the moves I make within the edits.
Okay. Let's see. Another question. You know, when you're talking about the language challenge on the project that you worked on, like how did you, like, from, I guess, from start to finish, like, did you like did you ever have like any serious fear? Or, like, did you know going in, like, this is going to be a serious language challenge? Like, how did you manage that outside of just having the person that translated for you?
Yeah, I think again, maybe that a little bit of the naivety going into it when somebody asks you like, do you want to do a foreign language edit? You're like, sure, yeah, absolutely. Don't really know what you're getting into. And then once you get the hard drive, you're like, oh, like, how am I going to do this? So I think I was never fearful, like knowing, because we had a great production team and producing staff to figure it out, and knowing we had the translators at our disposal. So really the process started with just taking the interviews that clearly I can't understand, and even the director himself can't speak that language. So taking those raw interviews, the audio, and sending that over to the translator first. So then they transcribe the entire interview with time code, and then we can go through and read that. And then we basically make a paper edit, right? So we go through and read a transcript and essentially build the story based off of that transcript, and then also the time code that will then relate to our sequences in the edit. And then once we get that paper edit kind of fleshed out, we'll still send that back to a translator for them to read through, and does this make sense contextually, or things like that. So once we kind of get that paper edit approved, then we really go in and carve out in the sequence and put it together, and then really add our subtitles instantly. So then we know what we're working with if we need to move and kind of change some clips up. So super fun process. Again, I think I really enjoyed the challenge with the foreign language stuff.
Okay. I want to ask a question from Manny. Manny is asking, in terms of collaboration, what's the best way for someone to approach you in hope of collaborating?
Transparency. I like openness. I think being transparent and just being honest. I think that's the biggest way to be collaborative. There needs to be a solid foundation of trust. So it's really going into a collaborative process, like setting expectations. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to get out of it. And then that way everything's set. So there's nothing problematic throughout the entire process.
Okay. Also, like, who are some artists or brands that you hope to work with in the future, or you truly admire, like you really like their work? You give one or two.
It's a great question, actually. I think I'm really driven a lot by the social and more PSA stuff right now. But from a brand standpoint, I mean, it's hard to ever like bat an eye at Nike. I think they're always forward thinking with some of their approach socially. So I think that would be an amazing brand to do some work with. One, I still personally haven't done a Nike spot yet. So I think that one's at the top of my list.
Okay. Another question. This one is from Nate. Said, what advice would you give someone looking to get into editing?
Great question. So I get asked that a lot because editing is weird, right? You can obviously download Adobe Premiere. You can get some clips and start putting stuff together. But what oftentimes I find with young people trying to enter this field is they actually just don't have access to footage or cameras. So I really think it is actually about reaching out and forming a relationship with other editors or assistant editors, and kind of, because there's oftentimes so many projects at post houses or production shops that are left on the back burner, or really are just sitting around, or even just getting your hands on some footage to play with. And again, I for one can speak to that too. It's like always have a little bit of something to work on. So I think one of the first steps, I think, is like just kind of reaching out to the community, specifically here in Detroit. But also I do think going through tutorials, learning just even the technical side of things. So then when you are handed a hard drive of footage, you'll be familiar with kind of what to do from the technical side of things. Like I said, there's the creative side that obviously is still kind of in development as well, which that, like I said, is kind of a lifetime of development.
Okay, thank you. This question is from Christian. She says, how How do you finish an edit other than slicing?
How do you finish it other than like cutting it?
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of going through the process real quick. Obviously, you go through a handful of different versions, right? Depending on what you're going towards and what the project scope is, like the duration that you need to get out of it or whatever. You're always going to start with usually something longer, and then you just go down, and really fine tune it to the point of everything that's absolutely needed to be there to tell that story or do that concept justice, whatever you're working on. But then once that edit is locked, again, at that point, it kind of turns into the finishing stage. And as I mentioned earlier, the finishing stage can include a handful of things. Everybody has a different process, especially nowadays with so much technology and everybody having computers and 3D renderers and stuff like that. But the typical finishing process is you take your locked edit and then you move into like a color correction, color balancing. And during that, again, you make everything look and feel cohesive, or you can really go wild and give it like a crazy look. And that's really fun as well. And then after color, if there's any VFX or 3D stuff, and then audio finishing, sound design, scoring, if you're doing custom music, and then getting a final audio mix. And really those three things are that kind of finishing bucket that once that edit's locked, it goes into that process. And then that's after that, it gets printed. And that's essentially, in a nutshell, the process for movies that you guys see too.
Okay. Let's see, another question. It says, from a post-house point of view, what are some things you look for in a colorist? As a colorist trying to make a name and secure a client base, what would be the best way to build that relationship with a post-house?
Send them an email. That's a good start. But no, yeah, I think, again, I think the big thing here is relationships in this industry as well. That's a whole nother component of film that I didn't go into in this chat because I wanted to kind of focus on the collaborative side of things. But the other huge thing in the film industry is relationships. It's a huge relationship-based industry. So reaching out, kind of stepping outside of your box sometimes and meeting new people, or again, just kind of like being transparent, sending an email to somebody and saying, hi, this is my work. I'd love to work with you. Do you have any pointers? Honestly, some of the best creatives that I still work with today started with an email like that.
This one is from Anonymous. Thank you for that answer. It says, from a young editor that's developing, what are some things you think what are some things that you think a young editor shouldn't focus on?
That's a big one. I mean, specifically in post-production, I think there's a lot of things I could say you shouldn't focus on in your personal life, but again, if it's affecting your project, I think oftentimes specifically in the edit, you can get kind of caught up in, I guess at least for me sometimes, when you look at the overwhelming amount of footage. And I think it's too easy to get caught up in that. And I guess I'm going into what to focus on. It is like watching the footage and like really spending time and watching every frame. I guess maybe that could be the answer to the question. What not to focus on is almost the end goal first. Because I think a lot of times that overwhelming thing that you have in your mind, that maybe what you're going to try to make or what the script says it should be, that can be overwhelming for an editor. Not a lot, but just sometimes, right? Of like, man, what is this thing supposed to be? I think if you kind of push that aside sometimes and really just give yourself the time and the space to experience the footage and really live with it and feel it, the story is already in there. You just kind of have to mine it out. So just give yourself that time.
Okay. And this is going to be the last part of the question because we want to honor your time. It's almost 1 o'clock. Same person, they add, so with your first commercial shoot, like how do you, like essentially, how do you make good work so that you have something to show, like that very first one that you can show the other people to get more work, essentially?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Thank you for asking that one. So I think again, we get asked that oftentimes too. Like, and I had the same questions 10, 12 years ago. How do I prove to somebody that I can do it? I know I can do it, but how do I prove to somebody that I can do it if I actually can't get that opportunity to do it? So that's the conundrum a lot of us filmmakers live in every day, right? You're always kind of proving and trying to like get to that next project and prove yourself and prove the level and kind of raise the bar for your own creative output, right? I think one of the best ways to, before you can even maybe get a commercial job. So for instance, back at The Work Inc., before we were able to even land really big commercial projects, that's why we started doing stuff for local businesses or friends, or coming up with your own creative concept, passion project, music videos. That's honestly one of the best ways to do it. Like, really use music videos as an outlet to trial and error, and you can hone in on a style that you might learn through that and then be able to go, this is my thing, I'm going to use this now and pitch that or take that or make another spot off of that. And again, the other way to do it is oftentimes young creatives do spec pieces. So kind of like commercial work that isn't hired to do, you're just kind of doing like a potential, like a pitch type project. So let's say you wanted to do a little spot for a Ford Mustang for like just to have fun with it. You can go ahead and do that. Why not? And like, honestly, like I wouldn't say spend a lot of time on spec work, but at the beginning, at the very beginning, to sometimes prove that you have that ability, it's not that bad to do a couple of those types of projects.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure people are going to look at the links. You guys have some amazing work, and I'm very familiar with the work that you did at The Work. So like, I'm really excited to take a more look at what you have done on this side of the coin. I'm not sure if let's see if Dylan's coming back because he's the one controlling all of this.
There.
Yeah. Well, if you have do you have any like closing comments, anything that you want to plug
I guess,
before you go?
yeah, just thank you guys so much for first and foremost setting this up, reaching out to us. It's a unique thing, but it's been super fun to kind of just share this. And yeah, I look forward to hearing if there's any other questions, and feel free to reach out to me or Hiatus, my team. And again, like I said, we'll get those links out so everybody can kind of catch up on what we discussed today too.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll make sure that these are up on Facebook and YouTube, so you can check them out later if you missed anything as well. But yeah, thanks a ton for joining us. We always love showing off some great local talent. I really love those process shots that you have in there. It's always fun to look at process. I think everyone was commenting that those like glitch shots were some of the like really cool things.
Cool.
Like
That's good to hear. That was a good hit. That's the first time I've done that in a presentation, so I'll keep that going.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully no one's stealing your style.
It's fine.
Great. Well, cool. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Yoki. Thanks for everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. See y'all later.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Bye everyone.